Hello, good evening to everyone. Yesterday we discussed in detail about the law of diminishing marginal utility and its assumptions. Today we shall discuss the remaining part of the law of DMU. So today we shall start with limitations of the law of diminishing marginal utility. The law of DMU has many limitations. We shall discuss them one by one. Number one, measurability of utility. The law assumes that utility of a commodity can be measured. We also discussed yesterday in the law of DMU that in the arithmetic table I have taken the marginal utility, total utility in numbers to explain the law of DMU. But in reality, you know that utility is subjective. One can feel the utility of a commodity but cannot measure it. Therefore, we cannot measure utility. How can we measure the feeling of a consumer in number? It is simply impossible. Therefore, this is the most important limitation to the law of DMU is that it cannot measure utility. Second point is that abnormal persons or things. The law is not applicable in case of abnormal persons or things. So now I am giving you some examples to make you all understand about abnormal persons. Who are abnormal persons? Drunkard, sharabi, miser, कंजूस, mad, pagalan. So these are abnormal persons. And in case of abnormal persons like drunkard, miser and madman, the law of DMU does not operate. For example, एक शराबी जब लीकर पीना स्टार्ट करता है वो और नहीं रुकता. When he starts taking liquor, the more he takes, the more he is tempted to drink. जब तक उसका होश रहेगा वो पीते जाएगा, यानी कि ये दिल मांगे मोर. So, in the additional unit of the consumption of the liquor, marginal utility for the drunkard goes on increasing instead of decreasing. Therefore, in case of abnormal persons like drunkard, miser, madman, the law does not operate. Similarly, एक कंजूस को हम जितना भी देते जाएंगे उसका मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी क्या होते जाएगा, बढ़ते जाएगा. सो द लॉ ऑफ DMU also is not applicable in case of miser man. So similarly, in case of abnormal things, the law is not applicable. What are abnormal things? Abnormal things are love, good music, hobbies, good novels, good novels and stories. These are abnormal things. So you know that love is the most important abnormal things in the world, because love is such a thing that we cannot imagine. When a person falls in love with a girl, the more he loves, the more of marginal utility he derives. Therefore, love is such a thing that when we love a person, when we love somebody else, the more we love, marginal utility go on increasing, it will not decrease. Therefore, D.S. Watson has categorically told that marginal utility of a kiss can never be negative. It is always positive. So in case of law, the law of DMU does not work similarly in case of good music. अगर हम अच्छा सॉन्ग, अच्छा म्यूजिक सुनेंगे, जितना बार सुनेंगे मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी उतना ही बढ़ते जाता है। ये मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी कम नहीं होता है। सो एवरग्रीन म्यूजिक, एवरग्रीन सॉन्ग्स, गुड नॉवेल्स, गुड स्टोरीज में क्या होता है, हमारा मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी कम नहीं होता है, बढ़ते जाता है। Therefore, we can say that in case of abnormal persons or abnormal things, the law of DMU does not operate. Third limitation is that the law assumes that other things like tastes, fashion, habit, income, price of the commodity should remain constant during the period of consumption. Yesterday we discussed in our assumptions that the law assumes taste, fashion, habit, income of the consumer should remain same. Price of the commodity should remain same during the period of consumption of the consumer of a commodity. Then only we can explain the law of diminishing marginal utility. But in reality, our taste, our fashion, our habit, our income, price of the commodity go unchanging. So in such a situation, law of DMU is difficult to operate. So this is another limitation of law of DMU. The law depends on the supply of the substitutes and complements. The law not only depends on the commodity he consumes, but also the substitutes and complements of the commodity he consumes. For example, if green coconuts are plentifully available, then marginal utility of Sarbat go on diminishing. That means the law also depends on substitute commodities and the complements commodities. It does not depend only on the commodity he consumes. Next one is that the law is not applicable in case of rare collections. Rare collections जो हमको क्वचित मिलता है, तो एग्जाम्पल्स में भी स्टाम्प्स, coins and artistic objects. If a person collects varieties of stamps or coins, stamps of different countries, coins of different countries, marginal utility instead of decreasing, it will go on increasing because he will get new varieties of stamps, new varieties of coins. Similarly, artistic object. You must have heard the artistic object, the painting of Mona Lisa, which has been painted by Leonardo da Vinci of Italy. So, it is a world famous painting and its marginal utility never decreases. So, why it is famous? The Mona Lisa painting is famous for wonderful looking and subtle smile. These two contradictory things are being incorporated in the same painting. Therefore, its marginal utility does not decrease, rather it goes on increasing. So, if a consumer will collect same variety of stamps or same variety of coins, then law of DMU operates. But if he collects varieties of coins, varieties of stamps and world famous artistic object, marginal utility goes on increasing. 6. Initial stages. Initial stage means beginning stage. In the initial stage of the consumption of a commodity, the law of DMU is difficult to operate. Suppose there is a thirsty man, and if we give him some drops of water to quench his thirst, what will happen? Then he will be tempted to get more and more water because his thirstness is not yet been satisfied. Therefore, in the beginning stages of consumption, in the initial stage of consumption, the law may not work, but when he consumes more and more units of the same commodity, then after some time, marginal utility will go on diminishing. And the last one is that indivisible goods. इंडिविजिबल गुड्स जिसको हम डिवाइड नहीं कर पाएंगे वो है इंडिविजिबल गुड्स, लाइक कार, बाइक, टीवी, एसी, हमारा ड्रेसेस, ये सब इंडिविजुअल गुड्स. In case of individual goods, it is very difficult to operate law of DMU because individual goods like TV set gives us utility or satisfaction for a long period of time. So we are not in a position to judge whether our marginal utility for TV is increasing or decreasing. Therefore, because we use these commodities for a long period of time and it gives us satisfaction for a long period. So, in case of individual goods, the law is difficult to operate. So, I have written down 7 points, 7 limitations of law of diminishing marginal utility. Now come to the application of the law of DMU. This is also most important thing. Now here we shall understand application of the law of DMU, marginal utility of money. Generally, we think that law of DMU does not operate in case of money because when a person gets more and more units of money, what will happen? Then marginal utility of money for him goes on increasing because money is such a powerful thing. It is the exchange power of everything a consumer likes to purchase. Therefore, the more he gets, the more marginal utility he derives. It is a common parlance, but this is also not true. Law of DMU also applies to money. Also applies to money because when when the stock of money is more, a person is rich. When the stock of money is less, a person is poor. A rich man doesn't care for money. He can spend his money recklessly, but poor cannot spend his money recklessly. Why? Because for rich man, for him, the stock of money is much more, therefore, marginal utility of money for him is less. But for the poor man, the stock of money is less. So for him, marginal utility of money is very, very high. So, therefore, a poor man cannot spend his money recklessly. So, marginal utility of money also applies to the money. And here we know in India there is the principle of progressive taxation. What is progressive taxation? The government imposes more taxes to the rich and less taxes to the poor. This is called progressive rate of taxation. Why? Because rich has more stock of money and for him marginal utility of money is less. So rich people can sacrifice more and more money. And for poor people rate of taxation is low because for poor persons marginal utility of money is very high. So there is the principle of progressive rate of taxation based on diminishing marginal utility of money. So therefore our law of DMU also applies to money. But now question arises, is there any difference between the application of the law for money and any other commodity? मनी और कमोडिटी के बीच द लॉ ऑफ डीएमयू ऑपरेट होने का कुछ डिफरेंस है क्या? ये है मेन क्वेश्चन। डेफिनेटली देयर आर टू डिफरेंसेस बिटवीन मनी एंड द कमोडिटी फॉर the operation of law of DMU. What are those? Number one, the marginal utility of a commodity falls rapidly when a consumer consumes more and more units of a commodity. Rapidly marginal utility will go on diminishing, whereas marginal utility of money falls very slowly. So this is the first difference. Marginal utility of a commodity falls rapidly, whereas marginal utility of money decreases very slowly. And the second difference is that marginal utility of a commodity can be zero. In our previous class, I have given you the arithmetic table. In the 6th unit of consumption of chocolates, his marginal utility was 0. So, a point will come, the consumer will refuse to take further commodity. Therefore, marginal utility of a commodity can be 0 or negative. मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी एक कमोडिटी के लिए 0 भी हो सकता है, नेगेटिव भी हो सकता है, बट मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी कैन नेवर बी 0 और नेगेटिव. बट मनी के लिए दो marginal utility of money decreases very slowly, but it can never be 0 or negative. अगर मनी का marginal utility 0 हो जाएगा या नेगेटिव हो जाएगा तो सोचो मनी का वैल्यू क्या है. मनी 0 हो गया. तो इसीलिए नो डाउट लॉ ऑफ DMU applies to money, but in a slightly different way as in commodity. Are you clear this point? Now come to the another most important relation between price and marginal utility. What is the relation between price and marginal utility? A consumer consumes a commodity up to that point where price is just equal to the marginal utility of the commodity. He stops further consuming the commodity where price of a commodity is equal to the marginal utility of the commodity. And remember this thing, this is most important. This is the point of maximum satisfaction for the consumer. When marginal utility is equal to price, then the consumer gets maximum satisfaction. Now we shall understand. A consumer consumes a commodity up to that point where price of the commodity is just equal to the marginal utility of the commodity. मान लो एक आदमी एक होटल को गया, उसके पास 50 रुपया है, वो 3 समोसा खाया, 30 रुपया दे दिया और चले आया। नाउ हम तो उसको कुछ नहीं बोले थे, कितने का खाएगा, कितना खाएगा कि नहीं खाएगा, वो अपने आप गया, 3 ठो समोसा खाया, 30 रुपया दे के आ गया। नाउ क्वेश्चन अराइजेस, वो 2 समोसा क्यों नहीं खाया या 4 समोसा क्यों नहीं खाया? 2 समोसा खाने से तो भूखा नहीं मर जाता, और ऐसा भी नहीं है वो 4 समोसा नहीं खा पाएगा और पैसा भी है उसके पास। तो हियर you try to understand this point. When he will consume 2 units of samosa, what will happen? Marginal utility is greater than price. It means वो जितना पैसा दे रहा है, 2 यूनिट का 20 रुपया दे रहा है, लेकिन पा रहा है मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी कितना? 20 से ज्यादा। That means when he consumes 2 units of samosa, marginal utility is greater than price. That means he will be tempted to take more samosa, because वो पेमेंट उसको कम देना पड़ता है, लेकिन मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी उसको ज्यादा मिलता है। Therefore, he cannot stop consuming 2 units of samosa. On the other hand, if he takes 4 units of samosa, what will happen? Marginal utility of samosa is less than price. इधर क्या हो जाएगा? अगर 4 ठो समोसा खाएगा तो क्या हो जाएगा? प्राइस ज्यादा हो जाएगा, उसी हिसाब से मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी उसका क्या हो जाएगा? कम हो जाएगा। और ये रेशनल कंज्यूमर कैनॉट कंज्यूम when he gets less utility and has to pay more price. Therefore, whenever we consume anything, whenever we purchase anything, our mind, our brain always gives us direction up to what point you have to consume, and that has been come in reality in terms of economics. Therefore, a consumer will consume a commodity up to that point where marginal utility and price are exactly equal, and that is the point of maximum satisfaction. So, this is one of the most important relationship between price and marginal utility, क्योंकि इसी रिलेशन को लेके हम नेक्स्ट जो पढ़ेंगे वो आएगा द लॉ ऑफ equimarginal utility or consumers equilibrium. So, are you clear this point that we cannot consume as long as mu is greater than p, because our total satisfaction will not be maximized, and also we cannot consume where mu is less than price. Here total satisfaction, total utility will decrease. So at what point we shall get maximum satisfaction? Where marginal utility is just equal to the price. So try to understand and remember this. A consumer always consumes a commodity up to that point where marginal utility is just equal to price. Next, come to importance of the law. What are the importance of the law of diminishing marginal utility? The law of DMU solves the paradox value, and I have written down water diamond paradox. What is paradox? paradox बोलने से जो चीज उल्टा होता है, कंट्राडिक्टरी होता है, उसको बोलते हैं paradox. The law of DMU solves the paradox value. There was a great problem, confusion regarding water diamond paradox, because water is very essential to our life. Without water we cannot lead our life, but the price of water is very less, or it is available freely. Is it not a paradox? Yes, it is a paradox. जो चीज हमारे लिए बहुत आवश्यक है, उसके बिना हम नहीं चल पाएंगे, वो चीज हमको मिलता है या तो फ्रीली और एट ए वेरी लेस प्राइस. ऑन द अदर हैंड, diamond is not at all necessary for life, but what is its price? It is very costly. So it is also a paradox. So this problem remained for a long period of time as water diamond paradox. But this problem could be easily solved with the help of DMU. I try to make you understand. You remember this relationship mu equal to p. Just now we have discussed marginal utility is equal to p because this is the point of maximum satisfaction. What is the stock of water in this world? Stock of water is abundant. So when the stock is much more, then what would happen to the marginal utility? Marginal utility of water will be very low because stock of water is abundant. So when marginal utility is less, very less, because of huge quantity of stock of water, marginal utility will be very less, and marginal utility has to be equal with price. Therefore price has to be less. Therefore, though water is essential for human life, it is available at a very low price or freely. Are you clear? On the other hand, diamond, you know that its stock is very less. Therefore, its marginal utility is very, very high. So when marginal utility of diamond is very, very high, it has to be equated with price. Therefore, its price must be high. Though it is not at all essential, but the price is very, very high. So are you clear? Therefore, law of DMU could easily solve the water diamond paradox. This is the first importance of law of DMU. Then come to the second point. Law is of great use to the finance minister of a country. The law is most useful for the finance minister of the country to decide the tax rate, to impose the tax rate. In our country, there is progressive taxation. That means rich will pay more and poor will pay less. And additional unit of money from rich will be diverted to the poor, so that marginal utility of money will be more in on an average, and there will be much more equity in the social distribution of money. So, following the principle of DMU, finance minister imposes progressive taxation to take away much money from the rich and to divert it to the poor for the equity. Third one is, this law is the basis of many other economic laws. That means this is the very basis for further economic laws. With the help of DMU, by following the law of diminishing marginal utility, we can get the law of equimarginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. Second one, the law of demand, and so on. Therefore, this law is the very basis of many other economic laws. So, thank you all. This much for today. We shall continue with a new topic in the next class.